at any rate, so hopefully he'll be in, but Ken is our expert on all business plan and recreation, business planning and cost models and cost recovery. So he'll add a lot, and I do hope we can get him in here. In the meantime, though, we're going to take a minute to tell you about each of our firms, and then we're going to talk about 4 subjects that we think are critical for you. And then, to the chairman's point, we're just going to talk about some thoughts about what we think is an opportunity on site, and if you wanted to look at indoor aquatics, how you might actually pull that. Can everybody hear me okay, or should I?
No, you're fine.
Good.
My wife tells me.
But if you should talk to my.
Should I do that anyway?
Okay. No, I've heard
Is that better?
But this is being recorded.
Thank you. Okay, good point. All right, so first of all, just if we can go to first slide. Got it. So Kimball Bograt. So we are a firm that has worked for nearly 100 municipalities, mostly in the state of Pennsylvania, but we do branch into 4 other states with our municipal work. We are recently working with South Fayette on their new complex, their rec center, and their library. We work with North Fayette on an aquatics planning project. We travel about 400 miles, and we're visiting, Washington and Jefferson is a good client of ours right down the road. So we're here a lot, but we have a mission that goes back 25 years of trying to help people do things with less money rather than more. And so our mission, as articulated up there, is what we call extraordinary solutions for ordinary budgets. And we think that has a lot of real value in the municipal world, where you want to create great services for your residents, but you want to be fiscally responsible at the same time. And so with a rec facility that's going to have long-term operating costs, it couldn't be more important than to balance those 2 things. With that, concept in mind, we're also here to help you figure out how to right size and right build, and that's why we have the team of experts that we have. And so I will allow.
Ken has arrived.
Ken's arrived. Can you hear us, Ken?
Here.
Excellent.
Here.
Where do I point that?
This way.
That.
Technology.
We've frozen the computer.
Yes, we have.
Things keep getting better. Ken, while that's working, why don't you tell them a little bit about Ballard King and your broad experience in this sector?
Well, Ballard King and Associates, we've been around for over 28 years. We've really specialized in aquatic and recreation facility planning studies. We've done work in all 50 states, and we've done really a lot of work in Pennsylvania with over 30 projects, and a number of projects right near Peters Township. We've had a long-term relationship with Upper St. Clair, worked on the development of their community and recreation center, are now working on an expansion of their outdoor aquatic area, and also have worked with Martin and on North Fayette on an outdoor aquatic center study. We've also done the Pine Community Center many years ago. And also, you can probably tell you, we're working together over in Derry Township on a brand new recreation center that's under construction. I think one of the key things, we're all, in our firm, are all former Parks and Recreation professionals that have been responsible for developing and operating a variety of recreation facilities, from indoor recreation centers to outdoor aquatic facilities. We have a real strong background in facility operations and aquatic facility operations as a result.
Excellent. Carl?
And hi, once again, I'm Carl Nylander with Councilman Hunsaker. We're the aquatics consultants supporting the Kimball Bograt team. One of the things that really, I think, differentiates us is that this is our sole focus. Commercial aquatic facilities is our expertise. It's all we've done for over 50 years now, whether it's feasibility studies and business plans to new facility design and engineering, existing facility assessments to operations, which can tie back into the upfront feasibility studies and business plans to help realize the goals and benchmarks that were set up front in the design process. So in over 50 years, we've been very fortunate to have, received a number of awards, several hundred awards on projects. And I think that just speaks to, we don't come at this looking for like a cookie cutter type approach. Every project is unique. Every set of goals the client might have is unique, with its own set of, budgets, opportunities, and things like that.
Thank you. Paul?
Good evening again. I'm Paul Hughes with Kimley Horn. We're providing civil engineering, landscape architecture, and permitting services. A little bit about Kimley Horn. We were founded in 1967. We have a staff of about 4,300, over 90 offices nationwide. So we like to say we bring a lot of national horsepower along with local expertise to our projects and our clients. We run our PA operation out of Center City, Philadelphia. Another little data point, we have one of the nation's renowned experts in water parks, and we have over 150 aquatic destination projects completed nationally. And we're going to draw on that expertise as necessary to serve this project.
All right, so thanks. So it's sort of enough about us. We just want to give you a little background. And obviously, we welcome your questions at any time during the presentation. But we're going to now kind of start turning the whole conversation a little bit more toward your project.
Yeah, so I think we look at this project as a real chance to build a sense of community identity for Peters Township specifically. As Martin talked about in his introduction, we had over 75 municipal clients, near 100. We've done multiple recreation and aquatics facilities, but each and every one we like to make unique and different. We like to get into the community, learn what separates it, learn what its specific needs are, and then develop a custom solution that will meet and match the expectations of the board and of the community, and sort of develop something that's unique to you that meets your specific needs and goals.
With the new park project that you have planned, with the new high school that you have planned, it's just such a great opportunity for you all to make something that is Peters Township and not what you can see up the road nearby or far, and it really suits and can be helped develop, and reinforce a sense of pride that you have with all the great facilities. I've toured the rec center, in the library. We've been out to the site, I think this was my 4th time today. Yep. And there's just great opportunity there, and we want to help you really take best advantage of that. So the 4 issues that we think are most important about this project that we're going to speak to here for the next few minutes is one is understanding what the state of the art in aquatics are and how that fits in a project that's in the Northeast with a limited weather window, and that will also be really attractive to your residents. 2 is that to make sure that we understand and that you understand how those amenities that you would have as part of an aquatics facility can actually be built affordably, and that will how they will impact your operating performance. The 3rd thing is overall cost recovery and how to staff a facility like that in the form of a real business plan, so that you really understand and you have good data on how the performance is going to go, and it will stand the test of time. And then last but not least is really how to do that on your unique Rolling Hills site, which is beautiful, but also presents some interesting challenges that we'll talk about as well. So first, I would like Carl and Ken to talk about state-of-the-art aquatics.
Yeah, obviously the pools are going to be a primary focus here for the project, and something that we bring to the table here. We just focus, as I mentioned, on commercial aquatic facilities across the country and in North America. We've got hundreds of active projects like that across the country right now. So we really have our pulse on where the industry is in terms of not just financially and keeping projects on budget and maximizing what you guys can afford for the facility, but also in terms of what the trends are out there, what are similar municipalities looking for an aquatic center, how can we maximize programming and things like that. We'll also not take a big picture look at the a scaled look at the feasibility study and the business plan. We won't say that facility X is this big and has this size model and we're Y and should be Y percentage of X. We'll take a look at each specific feature and let you know, hey, this is what adding a river potentially to the facility is going to do in terms of expenses, in terms of revenue. This is what taking the 4-lane lap pool from indoors to outdoors is going to do. This is what taking the pool from 4 lanes to 6 lanes is going to do in terms of the pro forma analysis.
Ken, if you want to sort of hop on.
Yeah, and I think, again, it's real important that everybody understand the trends that are going on out in the facilities right now. And it's not only just the amenities, but it's how you operate the pools themselves, the options that are available, how you price services. And so, you have a team that's very well adapted at bringing state-of-the-art concepts to not only what the facility looks like, but how it operates. And so we're prepared to do that. We're prepared to look at a variety of different options to meet the particular needs of your community, as well as your capital and operational budget, brackets, and how we need to perform within those brackets.
So with that in mind, the end piece though, after everything's built and done, the operating costs will eventually overcome what the capital costs were, as you all well know. And so then having the proper business plan and understanding of that is key. And Ken, if you could share some expert opinions on that.
And that's absolutely true. That's one of the things we really talk about is everybody's fixated on the initial capital cost, but it's the operational obligation for each and every year that in the end becomes the overriding concern for most cities, municipalities, townships, or whatever it might be. So we're going to develop an operating pro forma that's very detailed, that fits your market, that fits the concept of what this aquatic facility is going to include, the programs and services that are going to be offered. We'll price services for you, and we'll develop this model based on all of that. We're conservative in our estimates. Our facilities consistently outperform the operating plans that we put together for them, and we have a long history of doing that. But you'll have very detailed business plans in place of how the facility is going to perform. And like we talked about, we may very well be looking at 2 or 3 potential options while we're doing this, and we'll develop operation plans for each of those options so that you can see what it looks like before you have to make a decision on which direction that you want to go. And so it'll be, in the end, you'll have your preliminary first budget for whatever facility option is developed for this facility, and you should be set to go from that. You may need to make some modifications if there's any changes to the concept plans from the time of the study to actual construction, but other than that, you should be ready to go with an operating plan.
And so we will talk in terms, if the term is not familiar, but it's just cost recovery. And so to understand that for the total of the facility, how much revenue can you generate to support the operation, and whether or not there will be any kind of subsidy to continue to operate ongoing. And one of the key questions that Ken will be interviewing you about is, what is your target goal for that? And then we can basically give you a formula to hit different cost recovery models and tell you what the pieces have to be that are in there to drive that. If you look at an indoor facility, perhaps, and I know that's an option in the study, that's particularly important to do because the cost to operate those are so significant and are outright. So working with the site, Paul, we're going to talk about that together, but I'll let you lead that.
Sure. Yeah, we're going to get into a little bit of an analysis of the site layout provided, but before we get into that, I'll just kind of go over some overarching some concepts that I think are very important to looking at a site, specifically a site like this, when you have the kind of topography that you have out there, and you're looking at this type of facility where there's so much opportunity, to manage viewscapes and to use the topography to your advantage in order to sort of maximize the sort of effectiveness and usability of the site, as well as minimize cost, of course, for things like earthwork and stormwater management and so on. In particular, looking at earthwork for this is probably what maybe most people are most familiar with when they see a construction site, right? It's earth moving and machinery, and there's a lot of cost that goes into that. I think it's super critical as you guys are going through concepts for this to be doing preliminary grading and earthwork calculations, earthwork modeling, rather, early on in that process, so you make sure that everything that you're looking at, that you start to think that you really like, that you can afford it, that you're not going to have millions of dollars worth of retaining walls in order to make it that attainable. So I think that's super critical. Also, stormwater management. I noticed there was a large retention pond on one side, and there's several elements of stormwater management just going into your ordinance. Looking at water quality features and volume reduction. That's the kind of thing that you're going to want to look at some of your low impact development standards that you have in your ordinance, and trying to spread some of those things, distribute them around the site, distribute them into the landscape and into the facility itself. So I think those are some concepts that we'd like to explore further, and we'll get into that with our site analysis.
Excellent. So with that, I just want to take a few moments, and I'll kind of do the Vanna White piece here, and I'll try to talk loud enough that the mic pick me up. But we took some time to look at what the existing site is. As I mentioned, I've been on it personally a number of times now, and what the master plan showed, and look at, do we think there's greater opportunity, or there are concerns with it, and ways to be better. And so the first thing that we know, I think the logic, and I wasn't part of the process, was that you have the flat area where the tennis courts are, and where some of the parking was. And I think the overriding logic of this was put the pools where the flat area was. And so you'll see principally that that's what's derived. And I'm going to talk about, maybe there might be some concerns about that, but when you look at just flow and experience, you look at topography, as Paul mentioned, you look at workability of how people move around, but then you also look at what is the experience that you've created when you're done. And so some things that we see that are a little bit of concern here is, so with this long drive, you think about you're going to the pool and you're going to drop somebody off with all the gear and you're going to park the car. Okay, they're going to get out of the right side of that car 99% of the time. So you're going to come up that hill, and by having everything on the left, you immediately create a challenge that's a traffic flow problem. And so we'll talk about sort of that. Because this hill is raised, this area is raised, it's essentially not visible from anywhere except above the hill. So you're going to pull into that, and you're going to see a sea of parking, and you're going to drive uphill. And the principal feature that you're going to be able to see is the loading area here. And now you're going to have to stay left to go into a turnaround loop. You're going to have to come back down, and then you're going to have to go out into parking, and you're going to create a pretty significant overlapping traffic conflict where you have people walking and crossing, cars that have to go in front of the building a couple of different times. So those are just concerns that we see, and anybody can feel free to hop on. So I mentioned this left-right question. And then either way, you're going to have to terrace, right? So you're going to have to terrace and create level spots. You're going to have to do a lot of work to create that parking. And the parking has this fabulous view of the pond. The pools are essentially a little bit trapped in a pretty small area. But then people are going to go downhill. Parking's all going to go back down the hill. And now everybody going up is going to have to kind of schlep up to get up to the facility. So those are just some things that we look at and some of the traffic issues that I already mentioned. So the third thing is that if you look at pool deck in an aquatics facility, by limiting your development area to where it's currently shown, and I'm going to kind of let Carl kind of talk to this, but there's not enough area for people outside the water.
Yeah, I think with an indoor aquatic center, you're usually looking at about a 1-to-1 deck to pool water surface ratio, and that's honestly just for visually, it's about what we have here. For an outdoor aquatic center, you've got much more of your population is sitting in lounge chairs. You're usually looking at about 2.5-to-1 ratio. So you want to look to maybe expand on the deck, and then a couple of the other just physical features. The splash pad. I know there was some goals potentially to expand the season by a couple months. To get more use out of it, maybe some rentals with a shade pavilion. But having that exterior to the other buildings, that could be integrated potentially a little bit better with the site. Also, with the lap pool still being, a question mark whether or not it's going to be indoors or outdoors right now, having that in the center portion of the site could really, hinder some plans for development, things like that. So that would be better situated, probably closer to the building and probably more at one of the extremes of the site outdoors.
And do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I think the main thing, and it's already been touched on, is the fact that I think we can give you a design that's a little bit more operationally efficient and also builds you capacity with more deck space and more lawn areas that'll help you. And it gives certainly a less crowded feel even when you're maybe at capacity. And even the organization, as Carl indicated, of the different bodies of water is probably not ideal for ease of operation. So we'll look at some options that make that more possible. And again, real concern over if you were going to enclose that 4-lane lap pool, its location within the facility that really makes operations that much more difficult during the summer months.
So with all of that in mind, we want to develop a concept with you that is for you. But we were like, well, okay, is there a concept that could address all these problems? Because not only do we not have enough area really to work with, there's no way to get it in this configuration. You have an enormously steep upgrade hill right here. You have an enormously steep upgrade hill there. And so it's hemmed in such a way. So we're like, well, what if we looked at it a little bit different? You gotta go one more. There we go. There we go. So what we did is we just said, how can we use that exact same site and solve for every one of those concerns that we had? And what we really looked at is that if you kind of flip the concept and say, okay, we're going to terrace the area over here to put a really beautiful aquatics facility, and we're going to use the flat area that you have, plus terrace out of it to get the parking, so it's a zero-sum game. You know, I'll just start at the road. You can come in. When you're out here, even on McMurray, right? That's McMurray Road Drive? Is that
Well, no, actually,
out here?
Further down.
Oh,
Yeah,
that-
further
yeah,
down.
yeah.
And from your park master plan road, this is visible. That hillside, you'll go by there tomorrow, or if you go next time you go by there, you'll see that this is visible. That uphill flat area is not visible really anywhere. But you'll be able to see this beautiful aquatics facility and really have it be an experience. When you would pull in, that's the exact same driveway location that was shown, but with it on the right, you now have a natural drop to the right, just as you would want it without a cul-de-sac. You'll be able to continue to move and go out into parking and never cross over that again, so much so that you can go one-way traffic, which would be something to think about in an area where you have lots of little kids and people getting out and not paying attention, maybe people being in a hurry or younger drivers kind of cutting through. So you could do that. Use the building then as a gateway to the facility, and then you could start to use the hill to kind of actually step the pool decks down. You look at revenue generating opportunities, or you might want to have somebody take ownership of part of the pool for an event at different hours. You could sort of say this area is those people's. You could continue to stay operational. The facility would then maybe overlook the pond and have a better experience looking out than kind of hidden in. And you could upsize, downsize it. In other words, in a first phase, if, you know, depending on what the final plan is, it wouldn't have to be as big as this shows, but it could always be something that you could look at. Like I think Upper Sinclair is looking at expanding right now, right, Ken?
Yeah, really, because that area is too small for them.
So, it gives you the flexibility. It also, if you actually look at the grades, it would allow all of the parking to then be at the same level as the building, so you wouldn't have this uphill, downhill kind of movement. What am I missing, Matt?
I think that's key. One of the better strategies with this, you get that service and loading component pulled up to the north of the site, so it's discrete, it's screened, but there's a lot better access in the elements in this plan are spread out a little better. So you can get your service trucks in there, you can do what you need to do on a day-to-day basis, but it's not right up in everybody's face. It's well contained.
So you'll see we kind of zoomed in here, but then this gives you area for grass areas to have people be in, not just on the pool deck, ample pool deck, lots of different experiences and not kind of jammed up. If you operated a splash pad in a location like this during the summer, it could feel fully integrated. And I'm sorry I'm blocking your view. Is that
Not a problem.
I should have stood there and blocked all of you. But that's true. But in the winter, with like a gate here, and this would be a step down anyway, that could just, or not winter, but in the, after Labor Day and before Memorial Day, that could be open, and you don't have to do really anything else to secure the upper pool. But yet, during the key part of the year, it's part of the experience, and people can go from the splash pad up to the pools and have that kind of experience. So just, wanted to share with you kind of a different way of thinking about the whole thing. So we take a moment to turn toward the indoor piece. Okay, so your study talks about an indoor component. Yep. And the concern that the experts, and again, Ken and Carl will tell you, and I'll let them tell you, is if you do a standalone indoor aquatics facility out at the park site, financially, it will never have a cost recovery that you would be probably interested in. And if you guys want to elaborate on that for a moment.
Yeah, Ken, I can let you take it, but I mean, for a standalone lap pool like this, if you're only talking about 4 lanes, the ability to draw in revenue from local swim groups is going to be limited. You can get some lap rentals, potentially some parties, but for without any leisure components, it's going to be difficult. And then you're looking at the therapy and exercise groups and potentially like aqua yoga and things like that. But you're probably looking at a model that can recover, 40% or so of the operating costs?
Yeah, certainly under 50%. And again, even if you, you know, we know they're looking at options in either 4 lanes or 6 lanes, but even at 6 lanes, it's not going to do significantly any better. And again, as was said, a standalone indoor aquatic facilities just flat out don't perform very well financially. There's just not enough draw there. So that really led us to thinking about other options. So I'll let Martin kind of go to that and start to attach it to other amenities where then we know the rate of cost recovery will go up.
So, I mean, I had the opportunity to come by and visit and learn that, you know, with the new high school, it's going to have an indoor competition pool. So, like, even the need for a lap pool kind of really, I think, falls off in the community to a large part. So, probably what you really want is a more community-driven indoor amenity pool that has even some of the same features that you had outside. You know, zero depth entry. You can have classes in it, some deeper water, warmer water, and so on. And I learned on our Zoom interview with staff about your rec center. And so I took it upon myself to kind of go into Google Earth. And I was like, well, boy, oh boy, look at that big flat area to the left of your rec center. If you wanted to, you know, locate a successful indoor facility, you might consider expanding your rec center to be more full service than it already is. A little bit perhaps like Upper St. Clair's, where they have some of those things. And you can do that much more affordably and from a capital side because you're taking advantage of all this investment that you already made. And you could also then maybe consider a much more high-performing revenue for even the rec center itself, but in particular cost recovery on the aquatic. So how that could possibly look if you did that, you know, if you're all familiar, I no doubt, with your rec facility, you know, it's a pretty simple diagram. You come in, main circulation, gymnasiums here. You could sort of plug and play an aquatics facility onto the left side of that. I mean, it's as perfect as you could make it if you wanted to consider. I walked up the hill and looked down. All of your infrastructure and utilities and air conditioning and stuff behind the building out of the way. So you're really free and clear. Paul shared with me that, I don't know if any of you were involved in the original design, but that ball field was put there to expand, I believe.
It was put there to consider a pool.
Well, there you go. So, so I didn't realize that, but I knew it was for expansion. So it can be real, just very, very simple to come in. You might have a second entry. You might just stick with one entry. That's more of an operational and security issue. You can go in dry side, go through locker rooms, right out onto a pool deck. This shows, you know, a complex, very amenity-driven. You get lots of membership activity. People with all ages, while it still has the 4 rings that we talked about. It's a decent amount of pool deck area. One of the things that you probably, from a cost recovery, would want to consider adding that you don't have, but it helps to drive membership, and Ken will speak to this, is to add some fitness facilities, because that drives membership. It doesn't compete with your tax-paying gyms, and we've been talking about that. We've talked about that in probably 35 communities. But you could have, you know, that fitness center perhaps that would overlook the pool, that would then make the place something where you could generate kind of revenue that would help support it. So I'll let others kind of communicate on that. Ken, you want to talk about how fitness is a key piece?
I mean, that's the greatest producer of revenue per square foot of any other amenity in an indoor facility. So we know that drives utilization of facilities, that drives overall revenue. And again, even in Upper St. Clair, when we did that, the private sector has thrived even after that facility came in. So we found not only in your area, but across the country, public facilities become, in a sense, kind of the entry area for people into fitness. And the private sector kind of comes in oftentimes behind public facilities. And then when people are looking to go to a little more specialized, then they take that on. So we just simply have not seen any real competition issues with the public sector getting into this. And again, whether it's in Western Pennsylvania or the West Coast, that's remained true, especially over the last, say, 5 to 10 years. So it is an amenity. It's probably the most utilized amenity, even oftentimes more so than aquatics in terms of people coming to a facility. But it would be an interesting piece. Obviously, that's a little bit different than what you've been talking about up to this point, but probably at least deserves a little consideration.
So with all that in mind, Matt, we'll go back to the site plan, because that was really the key piece that we're here to talk about, even though this is all important. We would love to have any questions or comments or thoughts that you can share with us.
Well, I have a question. Given the current situation with the pandemic, I realize that nobody has a crystal ball. How do you think that's going to affect your projections? You're talking about assessing the operating expenses, looking at potentially do a break even. What is your comfort level on your projections?
Ken, I'll let you lead that one.
Well, it's certainly a big issue, and I think the feeling is within the industry that certainly with the current situation that won't be a permanent situation, so that we'll be able to get more capacity, whether it's related to aquatics or any other use of facilities or programs coming back. How quickly that comes back is another issue. I do think there will be some changes in how we operate facilities. We're starting to take those into consideration in our planning efforts for new facilities or for renovations as part of that. And there will also be, I think, some expectations from the public about concerns of overcrowding. So it's going to push down some of our numbers somewhat. And we've already started on a plan I was just working on last week for a facility. We've kind of scaled back a little bit some of our expectations in terms of capacity and also some of the revenue numbers as a result of coming out of that. But it's still very much a situation that's in flux. That I think will continue to evolve, but it may be literally this time next year before we have a clear understanding, and I'm hoping it's then, of what the long-term implications are going to be. I don't think it will be nearly as harsh as what we're seeing right now. I think it's our hope that it isn't, but I don't know, we totally have that all figured out. But we are taking that into consideration, and we've also done one effort where we've done a more traditional assessment of capacity and revenue, and one that's a much more conservative number that factors in that capacity numbers and even willingness to utilize facilities may be somewhat limited. So we've done more of a conservative estimate and kind of presented both of those as options in terms of where we think the facility will come in and perform ultimately.
I think one of the good news pieces that you have is, even if we were in a hurry between where we sit now with a project like this and when you would consider putting it out to bid, there's going to be an arc of time there that will allow the crystal ball, I think, to play out. So we'll know more before we ever look at putting, the real capital into the project, because as part of the planning process, that time will go by, and it's not like you're looking to go shovel in the ground tomorrow.
I think certainly the impact is less on an outdoor facility just by the very nature. I think the issue becomes much more exacerbated on an indoor facility where we have a little bit less room and obviously just the factors that go with that. So there's certainly, I think, a little more flexibility, a little more ability to deal with the situation with outdoor than there is indoor.
Thank you.
Okay, you have about 5 minutes left here, and I would like to hear just a little bit. I know this is subject to negotiation, but I just would like to hear structurally something about your fee proposals.
Sure. Well, there was a lot that was open-ended about the project as it was RFP, particularly with the idea of having.
I'm talking mostly structurally. I don't mean specifically the numbers. You have a couple options in here. I'd like to understand just exactly.
Yeah. So what we like to do, and we developed this process for municipal projects, which is really a two-phase approach, and I think that's how we present it, where we would do the entirety of the study, including the indoor aquatics, the outdoor aquatics, all the business planning components that we have, and all of the study piece for that lump sum that's included. And then what is really ideal is then once we know what the project is that we're going to move forward with it, be it just outdoor, indoor, whether it's phased, and we know what the scope is, then we would do a second lump sum, and I think we gave you percentages of a range to expect that would be really based on the true project. And we find that's the best way to do it, because if we ask consultants, and then there's other engineers that aren't even in the room now, we're going to design this and we don't know what it is and we don't know what the budget. They take on risk. They need to be conservative with themselves to take on risk, and we get bigger fees. When we have a really well-refined concept plan, we can say we're going to design that. Everybody can tighten that up and then give you a really good, solid, fair fee to take that through a public bid, Pennsylvania low prime job, or multiple prime low bid job. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And you talk about market assessment, and I always get a little shaky when I hear people talk about market assessment, because I'd like to hear what goes into that.
You sure? Well, Ken, you're the guy that's going to do that work.
Well, the market assessment really involves a couple of different aspects. The one is understanding where you're potentially going to draw your users from. Obviously, first and foremost, it's residents of Peters Township, but most facilities will draw from beyond a corporate boundary as well. So we identify what we see as the primary service area for the facility, and we look at the demographic characteristics: how many people, age distribution, numbers of children in the home, factors that all tell us about willingness to participate in aquatic activities. And so that's the first part, to understand, so what's going to be the demand for this type of a facility? We also know just regionally some of the issues that are in place that Upper St. Clair's dealt with their facility, especially their outdoor pool, which is undersized and was kind of an afterthought even when the facility was being designed. We know the demand for outdoor aquatics in a normal, quote-unquote, normal year is high in your area. And so we know if you want to have a regional draw, you can certainly do that with what we know right now. But we're going to look at that. We're also going to understand what other providers are in the marketplace. And those are not only public facilities, but other things as well. We were in North Fayette, we were looking at theirs, we were looking at HOA facilities and private swim clubs to try to understand what options people had in Peters Township and the surrounding area, and also what the price points were for admission to those facilities. So that tells us a lot about what we're going to design a facility for and who we can hope to draw to the facility. In some instances, we're saying you have to be careful. You don't want to oversize the facility because you may have a limited market demand. In other cases, we're going, it may be more of a limit on how much money you want to spend on the facility than it is on the market itself. So that's one of the very first steps in this process, is to really understand what the market tells us on the demand for this type of facility. It can also be done, it says, is there a greater demand for outdoor aquatics than there is for indoor? What's the differences in the market appeal for those two facilities? And they can be very different. And so that'll help us understand whether you want to focus more on indoor or outdoor, and for indoor, what type of a facility, what some of the sizing requirements are as well. So it's a real important first piece in this process.
Okay, other council members, questions?
I have a question. What's the purpose of that big body of water at the very bottom?
Oh, if you go back to the master plan, Matt, there was a wet pond shown on the master plan.
Stormwater main.
Which is stormwater. You see that blue? Same thing. We just duplicated the pond that was shown, assuming that was part of the stormwater.
I didn't know that. I thought you were going to put a pond in, and I wanted to know why we're wasting all that space.
Oh, good. No, so no, that was just duplicating, making a slightly more organic shape than what they showed. Same idea, though.
Just
Thank
a
you.
question back to your proposal, for your cost proposal. Given the situation, if in fact we made a determination that we weren't ready to proceed, do you have a window of time at which this proposal will be good for, if in fact it's delayed, or we would make a decision to not proceed immediately?
No, I think I speak for all of us saying that, in life, if it was, 3 years, maybe we would say that, everybody's getting paid more hopefully by then, but if it's, certainly at least a year, wouldn't be a problem at all. And most likely if it was 15 months out and you said we want to go, we want to honor that. We really hope to become, with all of our clients, particularly municipalities in Pennsylvania, really a trusted partner, almost like your solicitor. We're here to help you make great decisions, and that's our first and foremost thing, is give you great information to make great decisions, and then help you execute in a great way whatever that decision is.
Bob?
Out of a team that's here, who would be like
the resident spokesperson that would come and portray what your steps are? You would all come as a team, or?
Yes, so Ken would physically be here any number of times as part of his effort. Matt and I would be from Kimball Beaugret, would be the faces that you would see. We have a support team behind us. Paul would the same. He would be the boots on the ground, if you will. Carl. So it's all of us. And then there are a couple of team that are not here that are more technical, almost down the road types, mechanical engineers and so on, and they would have some project managers. So we don't have we're not the sales guys and then someone else will show up.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 45 minutes, and so we thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very nice
That was a good
presentation.
presentation.
Yeah,
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate the opportunity. We very much do. Thank you.
Thanks.
We are the team from Branstetter Carroll Architects. Larry's getting set up here. Larry's going to get us started off. I'm Nancy Nozick. I'm the project manager, so I'll run through most of the presentation. We have Charlie Schneider from Branstetter Carroll as well. Scott Kane from McKinley and Associates, and Sean from Gateway down there. So we'll each have our turn when we speak to you. Larry's still getting organized. Uh-oh, what happened to mine?
It's there.
Oh, phew.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Well, you get started, Larry.
Do you mind if I come out here?
Sure.
No, that's fine. Is it okay if I take my mask off while I'm far away?
I don't care.
You may not be able to hear me.
If you're socially distanced, that's
I
wonderful.
guess my question is that comfortable for all of council?
That's wonderful.
That's fine.
You good?
Yep.
You brought up a good point here a minute ago about your kids use the pool as a place to hang out and see their friends. And that's really part of, that's kind of like Aquatic Center 101, as to why people use it. We appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. And we've put together a pretty good team, people we've worked with before. And we're here to talk about who we are. But more importantly, we would like to show you what you can do to meet certain goals and objectives to provide a good aquatic facility, a good aquatic experience for your citizens. You'll find out that we've been doing this for a long time. We have quite a few projects we've done. But our message tonight is good news. We believe, and are convinced that you can do this family aquatic center for about $7.5 million in construction cost on that site, and it will recover all of its operating expenses in a given year. And we're going to substantiate both of those claims, not only with proof, but also show you 4 projects that are all about the same size that would fit beautifully here if they met the needs of your township. And they've all been done for less than $7.5 million. We also know that you're interested in perhaps building an auditorium. So why not save a little money now so that maybe more money is available if you decide either to do that now or in the future. But tonight we're going to focus on the Outdoor Aquatic Center. And you'll see our team, and I think I'm going to turn it over to Nancy and let her take it from there. But please be advised as we do this, we're going to show you how we arrive at the needs. We can forecast how many people will show up. We have records that we're going to share with you tonight of our forecasts and the actual attendance. In every project, I believe just about every project recovers all of its operating expenses, and some of them make a profit or a surplus in 6 figures. So we like to think that's a good mark of success. So Nancy, if you would take
I
over.
would, and I'd like to stand up too if I can. So again, our team, we briefly introduced you two. That's who is here tonight. And we'll go through our roles. To start with, Branstetter Carroll Inc. We have been in business since 1979. Our headquarters is in Lexington, Kentucky. I'm actually from the Cleveland, Ohio office. We also have an office in Cincinnati, Ohio, and Dallas, Texas. Basically, we're a firm of about 68 people, and the firm was started working for municipalities, cities, townships, counties, doing essentially started with fire and police, public safety, and the firm grew with what the needs of that community was, what the needs of that mayor was, what the needs of that township was. So we grew into recreation and park system planning and aquatic design, as well as libraries and other things like that. But as we saw what that community needed, we brought on the expertise into our firm to be able to provide that service. We have done over 120 outdoor municipal aquatic centers in those 40 years, 15 indoor aquatic facilities, and across about 10 states. So we do this every day, and we do it a lot and with a broad region, and there's different nuances that come with the different regions that we work in. I will say one other thing. It's right there on the bottom. We do have 2 staff in-house that are certified pool operators. So we are also designing from a position of understanding how you operate and how you maintain your pools, so that goes into our design. Scott.
Okay, so I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on our history, other than I will share very parallel to what Nancy stated with Branstetter and Carroll. We are starting in our 40th year this year, McKinley & Associates, my personally 20th year. We have started our firm working in historic preservation and commercial distribution and facilities of the like. We have, though, because that's where the market share, grown into schools, and that comprises probably 80 to 90% of our business. How that equates to what we're talking about here today is I and my team know how to design around the clientele that you all are going to be serving. Children, although they're wonderful and the smiles on their faces when they're at your facility are going to be wonderful to see, they're one of our hardest clients to deal with because they don't understand kit gloves. They don't understand how to go in and not slam a flush valve or a toilet as hard as possible. My firm is involved in the engineering, all the unseen situations and systems that will support the beautiful pictures and systems that you'll see coming out of Branstetter and Carroll. Our history with Branstetter Carroll, so that you know that we do work together. Right, presently we're working on, I think, 4 projects and actually chasing 2 or 3 projects at a time. This isn't a relationship built today. We have a long-standing relationship, and they're great people to work with. And every time we do, it just makes us closer. And the best part of today is coming and meeting and talking to Larry and learning a little bit about the parallel places that we ran in college together, although we were separated by, I think, 2 years, was it? We decided 2 or 3 years from his day to my day. But anyway, that's kind of off the subject. I will state, though, our job, making sure that the systems and the facility run smoothly, so that when we have kids come back when they're 47, after they've been there 40 years ago, they're not going to say, I learned to swim in that place where I got red eyes and froze my rear end off, because the systems didn't support the comfortable nature so that a family could enjoy themselves. That's my role and my team's role, is to support the beautiful subjects that they design and produce for you.
All right.
Also, sorry.
Oh, come on, you're trying to.
We're 42 minutes away. We're working through the construction phase. We'll be providing construction administrative services from our Wheeling office and our Wexford office. So you give a phone call and we'll be there that half of the day, immediately on site.
Thank you. Sean Donnelly with the Gateway Engineers. So I'm not going to do a big introduction on Gateway. I think most of you are probably familiar with Gateway, but we're a full-service civil engineering firm. It's been in Southwest PA for over 65 years. I know personally we've worked with the Township for 30 to 40 years, a lot of times with you and for you. But we're very familiar with the Township, very familiar with the requirements of the area. And that's really where we come together in this team. We're going to pull all their knowledge and what they want to put on the facility and make sure it fits perfectly for this site. So really at the end of the day, it'd be ideal if you didn't know we worked here. We don't want any drainage problems, any sewer problems, any utility problems. At the very end, you just focus on the pool, and the fact that the civil engineer was here is sort of an afterthought. It was just something that ties closely to the development, and that's really our goal with this project, is to help them implement their vision and make it seamlessly integrate into the topography around it.
Thank you, Sean. So we made a pretty bold statement here when we say we believe we can provide you with a quality outdoor aquatic facility that meets the needs of your community, is exciting for your community, for $7.5 million, and will break even. So we have done, or I want to just walk you through why we believe we can say that. We've gone through our metrics. We have a whole series of metrics that we have used over the years and refined over the years based on the actual experience and actual operation of pools. So we start here with attendance forecasts, and we start with average daily attendance. So what we look at is Peters Township, but also a certain radius from the site. And there are different, we look at the population, we get all our information from Esri demographic data, and then we apply certain percentages depending on what category, whether they're in the township or a radius outside of the township. And we get average daily visitors. So that's a whole day long, average number of people who will come to the site on that day. Then we take that and look at what does that mean annually. We look at an 80-day season for a summer pool season. That gives you just over 50,000 people that we believe will attend over the course of the year. This is what drives the design. How many people we think we're going to be able to support and have on the property. Then we also look at peak hour attendance. How many people are going to be there at the highest time during the day? What is that number of people? We need to make sure we can accommodate their needs in the pool. We have two different methodologies that we've developed. We kind of run the numbers two different ways and we average them out. In your case, we believe that peak hour is 604 people. So why is this important? These number of people, I will show you, drive how big the facility needs to be, how much water, how much deck, and all of that. How big the facility is then drives what your operating costs are going to be. But the revenue, okay, the revenue comes from the number of people. So all of this feeds into both the design, the revenue, and the operating expenses. I'm standing in the wrong place. What if I go to the next slide?
Here it is.
It's the connection to that.
Okay.
First, Nancy,
Yes.
we could ask the council, looking at page 8, does anybody have any question about these attendance forecasts or peak hour? Do you understand why it's designed that way?
Yep.
All right, we'll continue on. So then we take that number, that 604 people, the most you're going to have on any given day, your peak number, and what do we design to provide recreation for those people? So we look at 20 square feet per person for water surface area. That is not a code number. That is a programming number and a design number. It's a number that we use because we've seen that that number works in our metrics as we design. So that gives us about 12,000 square feet of water surface. We recommend, let's go through the slide. Then water slides is a factor of how many people you have. 1 per 350, so we think two water slides is appropriate for that number of people. Play features, deck and grass area, anything within the pool fence. So we recommend 3 times the amount of deck and grass area than you have water surface. At any given time, any given day, only 20% of your attendees are in the water. The rest are on the deck. So we want to make sure that we have room for them. And it also gives you that flexibility for when you do have that peak hour and there's so many people there. If you have more deck and grass area, you can adjust that fluctuation of having more people during the day. We also have metrics for food and beverage, tells us how to design the pool house and the concession area, shade structures, the pool house and the filtration building is all based on the size of the elements in the project. Parking, we use 1 space per 4 visitors. So in this analysis, it's 151 spaces. Then we like to have, we know that when you develop a site, you have to have open space around it. So this comes up to about 3.7 acres. The land that you have available and have currently planned for this facility is closer to 6 acres. And that really has to deal with, we got a lot of topography we're dealing with and the way that the parking would be laid out, stormwater management and things like that. But what this tells us is we can definitely develop this facility on the site that you have set aside. Actual pool, we said 12,000 square feet of water. Well, what does that mean? What do we think we need to do? Well, we recommend, just as a starting point, and this would then, we would recommend that this be validated through your citizens and council to really determine what water features they really want to see. We've started with a lap pool of 4 lanes, which is the minimum. Slide plunge pool, we're gonna have those slides come down, so there's a body of water the slides end into. An activity pool, which goes from 0 inches depth of water down to about maximum of 2 or 3, depending on the features you have in it. And then we're recommending a lazy river. Lazy river is one of the most popular water elements in outdoor aquatic facilities today. You can do a lot of different things with it. You can do water aerobics in it by walking against the current, and then you also have a lot of things you can do for the whole age range of people. And we throw cool jets and everything into it for the teenagers so that they get excited about it. You really need to cater to all your different users. And that gives us about our 12,000 square feet of water surface. That amount of water surface and those elements that we're proposing tells us how many gallons of water we're going to have. The operating expenses at this level are based on those number of gallons. We are using, wrong button, $1.15 a gallon for operating expenses. So that includes all your chemicals, all your maintenance, your staff, your lifeguards, everything that you need to operate the pool. We feel that is a fairly conservative number at this point in time. Similarly, the revenue, just over 50,000 people. Conservatively, we're targeting $6.10 per person. That includes concession sales, as well as gate charges or the equivalent season pass. So whether you have memberships, season passes, gate fees, whatever it is, it averages out conservatively to $6.10. So when we run those numbers, we've got a surplus of $20,000. Again, the goal is to break even. There are some years where you'll make money, there are some years that you won't. There's weather, there's all other kinds of things. But the average is to break even, and that's the goal in what we are proposing here today. Charlie, Nancy, can start talking.
Yes.
So we did an updated layout, proposed layout. Charlie will walk us through.
Yeah, so this is what all those numbers lead to. And this is just an idea that we came up with, one possibility of what could be out there at the site. We'll start at the bottom. That's the pool house. You'd enter through that middle rectangular piece. Concessions is over to the left. We've looked at working with the grades a little bit. The grades are going to be somewhat of a challenge on this site, but that's what we like. We like to be able to break up all this deck area. 36,000 square feet is a lot of space. So being able to terrace it throughout the site really makes for a nice facility. So coming down from that concessions level, we have that main activity pool. We show a play feature in the zero depth entry area. We show some the lily pad walk going across, and an area back there with a climbing wall. These are just some of the many features that are available out there for these pools. Up to the top, above that, a 4-lane lap pool for your lap users and exercise users. That's still a big need. And then down to the right of the pool house, we have, this one is shown as actually a wading pool with splash pads off to the side. Depending on how ultimately you'd like to operate the facility, maybe that just turns into just a strictly a splash pad, and that way you can operate the splash pad in the shoulder seasons before and after the pool is open to extend the usefulness of the facility. Once you start putting water in it, of course you have to have a lifeguard, and that would drive up the operating costs. We've done that on a number of facilities where we have this spray ground where you can operate it outside when you get to family restrooms. you can use for the restrooms portion of that while it's in operation. And family restrooms would be open to the rest of the park too.
Often we do that too, yeah.
From there we come down and you can see we have a little green strip coming between there that represents, you know, our few feet of drop, whatever that ends up being ultimately down to the lazy river. And we have a plunge pool off the lazy river, so that becomes one body of water with a couple of slides coming into it, a speed slide and a tube slide ride. There's a lot of things you can do with these lazy rivers. These things can be real fun. You can activate them with all kinds of features if you want, or you can leave them just as a nice passive activity. As Nancy was mentioning, they're great for the exercise and the other good thing about having this many bodies of water is you have lots of different opportunities for swim lessons and all the kinds of activities that go on in the mornings before you go to the facility. And this is just a larger view of it, showing, you know, one possible layout for the terrace parking coming down, stormwater control at the bottom of the hill there, and drop off in front of the building. And also, these are a few representations of bathhouses we've done in different areas. We try to, you know, bring in the architecture and make it fit the community as we go.
Right, so if you notice, these examples all are significantly different because they represent the contextual nature of that community. So everything we design designs to the community and not what we have in our head. The other thing I'll point out on this layout is basically this from the lap pool down to the pool house is where your basic level space is now. So those tennis courts are right up here. So to get you in context with what you had planned, the previous plan that you had was similar to this. The parking mirrors that almost exactly where the parking is in the plan that was in your master plan, with the tiered grading that would come down here. And then we're anticipating that, again, within the pool fence area, we'll have a couple different levels of grade there. A couple other things we wanted to share with you. We had some of this in our submission initially. Paul had some great questions on it. So we've updated this a little bit. We have two charts here. One is attendance forecast, and one is cost control, which is construction cost. The list is identical from one to the other, the same projects in the same order. The reason we're showing all of these are from all different kinds of years, but it states where it was located, the population of that community, what our forecast attendance was and what the actual attendance was in this particular year, and what the deviation is. That's for the forecast. Then we also look at their operating costs and their revenue to see how they do on their quote-unquote break-even. So we have all of these examples. Most of them are break-even. Some have a large surplus, some have a small surplus, some have a small deficit. And it kind of depends on the year that you track. But we've got, what do we got here, about 12 projects that we've looked at in that way. We have those same projects. We've looked at construction costs, and we've looked at it from comparing our construction estimate to the actual construction contract and the percent of change orders. Larry, I think the average change order percentage is typically about 4% on a project.
In the industry, yeah.
In the industry. We've got one in here that's 4%, but most of them are under 4%. That has to do somewhat with our cost estimating and our experience, but also has to do with how we structure things, knowing that we're working for municipalities. There's always a construction contingency that's built in. We request that that get approved up front, so any little change orders that happen throughout the project, you don't have to come back to council for approval on any of that. And in the end of the project, normally you get a deduct at the end of the project where it came in under the amount of money that you have anticipated. So this kind of shows that, and it also gives you the date of when these projects were completed, so you can kind of compare the dollars amount to what we have today. Then we just wanted to show you a few examples, and then we're going to be able to talk with you. So there are 4 projects that are on that list that we want to highlight for you here. This is the most recent. This is Westlake, Ohio, which is a suburb of Cleveland. This project finished construction last year, the beginning of the summer of 2019. $7.4 million. They wanted every bell and whistle we could possibly come up with, every water feature that no one has ever done before. So the interesting thing here is there, even though it looks fairly flat, there's a little bit of grade change here. So you go through the pool house to the activity pool, and the slides are at this level. You can see there's some rocks in here. We've developed waterfalls and different ways to deal with the grade. So this bridge here basically is flat, but it then takes you down to the lazy river that is at a lower level. The lap pool is at a lower level. There's a series of steps here that people can sit on to observe. And again, you can see lots of landscape areas, grass areas, and shade structures. But again, they wanted dueling buckets on their activity pool. We even have a dumping bucket in the lazy river. So they put a lot of stuff into this, and we were able to do it for $7.4 million just a year ago.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Westlake has 30,000 people. The household income is very similar to Peters Township. And so a lot of times we will structure our rates and charges based on the per capita income or the household income so that you don't charge more than what people can afford, I guess is the basic way of looking at it. We also have data on a lot of pools in Ohio and Kentucky, and we've got some in New Jersey. New Jersey uses a membership model like I think you're talking about here, whereas in Ohio and Kentucky, and you go farther west, it's more of a gate charge that you can go, but you can get a family membership. So there's two models. Princeton, New Jersey, for instance, has that membership model, and they do about $150,000 a year surplus on revenue of $400,000. So they're similar to that. Now Charlie's going to tell you about a few others.
Maybe.
Leave me on Westlake for 1 second.
Oh, Westlake.
So Nancy mentioned that bridge across. This is the first lazy river we did that is handicap accessible to the island. It's very difficult a lot of times to get that handicap ramp in there depending on how much space you have. So we were happy to be able to get that accessibility across to the river island. We switched it to it. And Juniper was unique. It also is terraced. You can see there are probably 3 different levels on this one as well, probably 4 if you consider the slide, because the plunge pool is at a higher elevation than the activity pool and lap pools, and the building was up higher as well. But on this slide complex, you see the yellow slide to the right there is a family slide. We were actually able to get this slide to be handicap accessible. So it's wheelchair route accessible up to the platform, and then there's wheelchair accessibility and a transfer wall down at the bottom. To my knowledge, this is the only handicap accessible ramp in Ohio or Kentucky slide that we've done.
The other thing I'll mention in the layout we did for Peters Township, Rolling Hills Park, that slide is intentionally over the grade change. So the tower is actually shorter and the slide kind of goes down the grade change, takes advantage of the grade change with the slide.
This is Huber Heights. It was built back in 2011. I think that's almost been 10 years since it's opened.
Hard to believe.
Yeah. Again, this is a really flat area up there north of Dayton, but we still were able to terrace some of the site. Really, it's just that one pool house. All the bodies of water were on the same elevation. Similarly, this one has a wading pool, an activity pool. There's a 4-lane lap pool there in the background, and you can't see it, but behind the activity pool is a lazy river.
Excuse me, Charlie. Huber Heights had one of the more fascinating projects I've ever seen. We did a 10-acre park as part of this. There was a total expenditure of about $10 to $12 million. That project was what, $5 million?
Yeah, just
it's on the list or something. They built the entire project with tax increment financing. So there was no increased taxes. There was no effect on the city's budget. And then they turned it over to the YMCA to operate. YMCA operates it. They make their profit out of operations. And so the city has virtually zero money in a 10-acre park. And on top, in a $10 million park. And so I like to think when you look at projects and look at the impact of the project on the budget, you want to minimize the impact and you want to maximize the benefit. Maximize the number of people that come through the gate.
All right, you want to leave time for questions, so
Okay, so this one was done back in 2006. I actually live in this community, so I got to design the pool that my kids got to go to. It was fun. It's a little bit different on the programming side because really this is one big body of water. There is an 8-lane lap pool that's adjacent to it that's separate. But the plunge pool, the activity pool, even the kids' tot area, and there's a vortex area over on behind the slide that you can't see. It was all combined into one body of water. So that, there's different ways of combining these. Pros and cons of doing each. And the Blue Ash wading pool, we did this one back in 2015. This is just a wading pool, it goes from 0 to 2 feet deep. But this is one of those ones where we've incorporated splash pads all the way around the perimeter of it. So you get lots of different options for kids to do. And then we got the dumping bucket with the slide that's on the deck. And then the best part of this pool is the bubble that all the kids are climbing over. So that's it's an air bubble that is supported just from blowers, and kids get on it. And I mean, it's like you're playing King of the Mountain all over again on this thing. They make all different sizes of those bubbles, so you could do them up to the diameter of this room if you wanted to.
So we just want to close up. Do you want to close or anything?
No. Let's do questions.
Okay. That's what we wanted to share with you today. So any questions that you have for us at this time? Good, thank you.
I'll start.
Oh, good.
You have your attendance forecast, and given the situation now with potential restrictions and pandemics, and you were looking at some square footage allocations by person, with the 6x6 now, what are your thoughts as far as how you're planning your projections and need to take those things into account going forward?
Can you look at that? Larry wants to answer.
Well, I think you're asking how will COVID affect attendance?
That's a short way of saying it, yes.
Yeah, and I think by the time this project is finished, by 2/22, I like to think that that's going to be behind us. But if it's not, about 55% of the municipal pools in this area, and I'm speaking really of Ohio and Kentucky, are still open this year. And so some people have closed, others haven't. But I really believe by next year they'll be back open again. But if they're not, we will come up with a program so that they can open. Now, a lot of these, the Westlake project is open, and they're just open as usual. Their attendance is off, but we do that for other public buildings. And so if that were still a concern, I think we would design it, Nancy, and set it with the back of our heads to say, what are we going to do about spacing and, the normal things that you do now.
Yeah, we worked a lot with our New Jersey clients specifically because they had some mandates come down from the governor that they had to reduce the capacity of the pool. And so we went back and looked at the capacity of the pool and what was required to see how many people they would be able to get in there, where they could put them, and how they could operate safely. They had a lot of concerns about will we be able to open the slides? Should we open the water features? And ultimately all that gets opened up, and we worked out a plan to where they could operate, and they're operating at reduced capacity, but they've got, I would almost say, if you look at the daily basis, they're probably getting their peak numbers down because they have to hold down, but their daily number is still very strong.
And this gets back to that 3 times the beach and deck.
Very important.
Because the name of the game is separation.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen some previous studies that have been done for this facility, and whether you select this or not, I would highly advise that you use that 3 times the water surface area number, because as Nancy said, 20% of the people in the water, 80% are not in the facility. An aquatic center is a recreational facility that is community-oriented and water-oriented. And as your one elected official mentioned, kids come there for the social side of it, and you can expand it with proper programming to have things like adult get-togethers, teen parties, whatever that might be. And we're seeing that is when we ask people what they want that type of thing for the community interaction. And that's a change that we've seen in the last 2 or 3 years. So that's why we say it's so important to talk to people and ask what they want, what they would like to see. And we can do that in a series of workshops that literally will not, you wouldn't even have to attend. We'll just do it, we'll bring Michelle, and I think you'll learn a lot if you'd like to do that. So,
And just I'm sorry, I didn't mean to overstep you.
did we answer your question adequately?
Yes, sir.
One last thing. It's all about smart and intelligent design. You all may recall I stood up and I said to you all, we will handle the clientele that you offer up to us. These are children, hard to deal with, don't listen, you know, they touch things they shouldn't touch and smear, but the engineering systems behind it all, as we have developed and worked through all of our schools, we're going to support antimicrobial surfaces anywhere possible, proper filtering of the air, water, and everything like, so that there won't be, we will limit cross-contamination through these means. These are all unseen items, but a smart and intelligent design is what our team is all about.
Right, and I would have expected that isn't new, that's
No, not at all.
standard that
Yes.
you would be doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions?
Paul, did we have forecasts done, did we not?
Yes.
Were they made available
Yes.
to this
Yes.
group? Okay. I have a question for you.
Can I comment on that?
Huh?
I read the other forecasts that you have, and they used a number, with all due respect, they used a number that National Recreation Park Association used in the 60s. Now, if you noticed, we went back and we segmented those numbers. And one of the things you'll notice about our forecasts, and I hope you realize that we're not off very far in the aggregate. If we walk out of here and you don't realize that we've missed something, it'll be our fault. But we've been within 5 or 10 percentage points on virtually all of them. We've got a couple of outliers. But your other reports used an old number that was put out by NRPA, National Recreation Park Association, when they had standards. They used to have standards, remember, Michelle, 1 tennis per court for 2,000 people and all that stuff. Well, they threw those out about 20 years ago.
That's not the report he's referring to. He's referring to the campus market study, is what he's referring to.
That's the
Oh, that
second
one.
report, that had even more.
Friend, I've read that report. I have no idea how they came up with these numbers.
Neither do I.
And the reason did you see our forecasts and our forecast accuracy? I think that speaks for itself.
No, I just wanted to know if you had access.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, we looked at it.
And that's one of the reasons we did our own, because we wanted to validate through our means and our metrics that we use,
And can I?
where we thought we would fall.
I'll make one other point. This forecasting is an art more than it is a science. Because you have to sort of look at things and you develop an intuition when you do it so many times. You'll find things in the community like an interstate highway would have an effect on the attendance. You'll find other barriers. You'll find neighborhood. You'll find cultural barriers. And we like to go in and say, identify, are there any barriers in your market area? You also have the opportunity to make, as a matter of public policy, do you want to have outsiders come in? And if so, what will be your rate structure? That's a decision you can make way down the road. But what we're proposing to you is something that will take care of the area. It will be done you'll have a facility that people will say, wow, when you walk in, and they'll come back over and over again. Because when this attendance hits 50,000, it starts to get a little squirrely over the 50,000. There's been some that I thought would be up in the 70s, but then we backed it off, did some other things, and we saw kind of where that number was going to be. So my point is, it's more than just a science. There's a little art to it too, taking your intuition and applying that to the industry.
Thank you.
Let's continue with any other questions.
No, it's more of a comment that you and the preceding group may need to be cognizant of the fact that in our young people, this is a very aquatic, aggressive school district. And relative to the small community pool, Rose Garden, The diving board is continuously occupied, and I'm not certain that I see the accommodation of that age swimmer and interest in all of this flat level play spray park type concept.
Part of that, and again, that's something we would develop with you. We haven't had the luxury of learning your community, and that's another reason we want to ask the community what they want. We do have the climbing wall is a very team-focused feature, and then some of the things that we talked, the slides definitely, and what we can do with the lazy river are also things that can draw teams.
Lazy River is all old people.
If we wanted, I'll show you.
Sir, let's go back to the pictures and see who's using the lazy.
I know that, but that's who wants to be in
This
there.
river has a little offshoot that we call the Crazy River, and all of the water features and the dumping bucket are at this end for that purpose. So, well, again, we need to better understand the demographics of the people that you want to draw and see what else we need to do. We looked at whether we need to add diving boards or not. We didn't have them in the master plan, so we didn't go there right now, but that's definitely something to look at.
Well, I don't know. At Valley Brook, I've been there a number of times, but
It's used
continuously.
Yeah.
Okay, we're about the 45-minute mark here.
All right. Thank you, gamekeeper.
Could we confirm price though?
And by the way, I was only telling you to go away because I'm a COVID-19 just recently. I'm protecting you, not me.
Thank you.
Yes,
I figured you were well motivated.
So on your cost proposal, you show the breakdown of the different phases that you would charge for, and then 8% of the construction cost. So based on your projection of $7.5 million, that would be $600,000 plus the additional. Am I doing my math correctly?
More or less.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate the time.
Absolutely.
Good evening. On behalf of the Walliver, Mackin, and Hayes Design Team, I want to thank you for having us here this evening. What we would like to do this evening is really discuss these basic items. Our team, the individual roles that we're going to play within the design process, what we as a team bring to the township, our understanding of the project approach, what has been done to date, what we intend to do for you to bring the project to fruition, the deliverable package that we're going to be providing in the project, and why our team is the best for Peters Township. So with that, we're going to get started. This is our team. Walliver Architects is serving as the design architect and the aquatic design consultant. We are a licensed architectural firm, and we're going to serve in that role. Walliver Aquatics International, Susan's, my wife's firm, is going to be handling the business planning aspects of the project for you, helping you guys make the determination as to whether or not this becomes a year-round or a seasonal facility. Those are the components that she'll be addressing for you in terms of operational costs, anticipated revenues, things of that nature. Mackin Engineers, as you well know, Bob is here tonight. Bob Genter is here with us. Their firm was the lead firm in the original feasibility study that was done for Rolling Hills Park. We participated in that project with him also. They are going to be handling all the civil, landscape, architectural, anything related to the site design. Hayes Design Group, Mark Dwayne is a resident of the township here and very passionate about the project. In fact, Mark and I worked together on the development of the Peters Township High School. Mark's firm is the design architect and architect of record on that project, and we were the aquatic design consultants for that project. We also brought to the table Barbara Hoffman for the structural engineers, whom we've all worked with in the past. Tower Engineering, they were also involved with the high school design. And Aegis is the geotech group that will be doing the initial analysis of the site for us. So this is the team that we bring to the table for you. A little bit about Walliver Architects. We've been in continuous business for over 38 years. We are a licensed architectural firm in Pennsylvania and a number of other surrounding states, but we have developed over the course of our practice a very thorough understanding of the aquatics field. And with that, we bring that to the table tonight for you. We've done over 150 aquatics projects around the central Pennsylvania, Eastern Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, Mid-Atlantic region. 90% of our practice is devoted to aquatic facilities design. We do some general architectural work and historic preservation work, but the majority of our work, the vast majority of our work, is in the aquatics field. So we really base all of our work on the idea of bringing architecture and aquatics together. The images you see on the slide here are pretty good, are excellent examples of the type of work we try to do. The upper right-hand corner is Shanapin Country Club project here in Pittsburgh that we did a number of years ago, which still stands the test of time. It's been a great little project for us. Just below that is the newly completed swimming pool over at West Jefferson Hills. And the surrounding projects are some other projects that we've done in the general municipal field.
Hi, my name is Bob Genter. I'm with Mackin Engineering Company, and I met you all at the first master plan project we did a couple years ago. And as Ted said, we had Ted on as a consultant. Since then, we've worked with Ted on other projects as well, and with Mark Dwayne through Hayes Design Group. So really, this team has done work together in the past, and we continue to do that in the future. So we really have and the nice part of it is everybody puts their best ideas on the table, and we give you, the client, the best results of that product. And so I really enjoyed working with these people. We have a very good relationship. Mackin's been here since 1960 in Pittsburgh. We have 50 professionals, 14 licensed engineers, 2 registered landscape architects. We do everything from field survey to site civil, traffic engineering, landscape architecture, etc., all the way through to permitting and inspection services. So it's really beginning to end for site type of land development and work. And we've done many projects with Wallover Associates. We've worked on Bellwood Antis, Washington, East Washington, Rolling Hills. Our history goes back a little bit. There's also some projects up there that are listed in other areas that we've done in Moon, Franklin Park, City of Pittsburgh, etc. But we're going to be here for many years to come, and we hope you get the great impression that our work counts. We rely on repeat clients, and we're here to continue to do a great job for you. I'm going to turn it over to Mark, and he's going to talk about Hayes.
Yes, hello. My name is Mark Dwayne with the Hayes Design Group. We're an architectural firm. We're located in Robinson Township, and I myself am a resident of Peters Township. Our firm, our expertise is mostly in municipal and governmental buildings as well as K-12. Those are our predominant clients that we have, but we also do other higher educational and commercial type projects. We're bringing capacity to the table as far as getting documents done, and also we'll be doing a lot of the construction observation. Being local, we'll be able to be on site as often as needed. And what we listed up there as far as pool experience, why it's important for us to say that is one of the options may depend on whether a pool is inside the building. And so we've done numerous school projects that actually had pools in it, and so we just listed those. And it is an integral part of the design to incorporate, once a pool is inside the building, you have to take into consideration the mechanical systems that go into that space and also the finishes, and we're good at coordinating all of that effort. We pride ourselves in doing affordable, functional space that meets clients' needs, and always keep the budget in mind. That's a very high priority with us, to monitor the budget throughout the project, and we like to do that without sacrificing any quality in design. So yeah, we have 17 professionals, 10 of them are licensed architects, and 5 of those 10 are LEED accredited if you're interested in a LEED accredited project.
So what we bring to the table for you is a group of design professionals that really does understand the municipal environment. These are just a few examples of some projects that we've done recently. Cranberry Township and North Boundary Park, we were brought in to basically redesign the facility. We completely revamped all the mechanical systems, separated the pool into 2 independent bodies of water. where they had roughly 15,000 square feet of water surface area. And we then came up with a number of different solutions for them. And we ultimately ended up bringing it back to a like-new condition, and it's really working extremely well for them. West Jefferson Hills High School is an interesting project. It features a Murtha pool. A Murtha pool is an integral part of any swimming pool if you are looking at pre-engineered construction. The Murtha pool carries a 25-year guarantee on the structure from the date of substantial completion. But we have a lot of experience with that system. Peters Township High School is also a similar construction system. The project you see here in Quakertown, that also is a Murtha pool. That was a renovation of an existing facility that added a complete beach access, shallow water area that was integral with the main body of the pool. That particular project went from an aging facility to a like-new, brand-new facility, basically. The building was entirely rebuilt. And we really developed a program of activities based from recommendations from Sue and working with the recreation department of the city to really come up with new ideas for the facility. With the Murtha solution, it gave them a brand new pool with a 25-year warranty. So we really feel very strongly about that project. The last project on the slide is the Ardmore Community Pool. We did both that particular pool and the Belmont Hills pool for Lower Merion Township, just outside of Philadelphia. Involved a thorough feasibility study beforehand. We were then retained after the feasibility study was completed to develop both sites, both the Ardmore pool and the Belmont Hills. The Belmont Hills pool was voted in 2009 as Philadelphia's best swimming pool. So we've had some really good success with the work we've done. But that's the type of thing the team is going to bring to the passion for this project to Peters Township. This is backing up on a little bit of north boundary. Our designs really take on a variety of technique. We look at developing different ideas. We test those ideas with the client. We test them with the recreation departments and the operators. And we generally go through a series of freehand sketches and design ideas that we present during the initial process. Those ideas then are translated into CAD documentation, and then those ideas become reality. And this is some pictures of the completed project. The tumble bucket feature has just been an absolute smash hit for the kids in that particular location. But all of these images here basically relate to the interconnected nature of both the pools and their water playground features, which are both major components of your desired activities. This is a project that's south of here. It's down in Graysville, Pennsylvania, south of Washington. This is Ryerson Station State Park. We were the aquatic architects for this project. I don't know, you may have seen in the news a few years ago where the dam breast cracked and they had to basically drain the lake down there. This project was a direct result of the lawsuit that ensued, and we were then directed to develop a brand new aquatic facility for the park. And we started with the basic concept design drawings you see in the lower left. They were then generated up into CAD Revit models that were then illustrated and rendered. And those were the documents we were able to produce to help the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources in Harrisburg make their decisions as to how they move forward with the project. These are some shots of the project under construction. These were just taken last week. The project is under full manning right now at this point in time. They were delayed by COVID, as most projects this year were, unfortunately. But I was down on the site just basically to review the observation of the installation of rebar. This is a pneumatically placed concrete pool. So this is a different technique than we talked about with the Murtha pools. And you can see from the placement of reinforcing around their main drains to the forming of the beam and shooting of the pool. This pool was completed last Friday. They shot the last concrete on the pool. So this is now curing at this point and being ready to move forward. The slide on the lower left is the filter plant. It's a high-rate sand filter system utilizing glass media, very similar to the system we used over at the high school. So again, when we start thinking in terms of the kind of components and elements that we would use in this particular facility, we want to make sure that they are compatible with the work that's been done at the high school. So there is some commonalities, so there may be the opportunity for the township and the school district to potentially share in expenses and cost, staffing for the folks that maintain the water in both facilities. This is the Peters Township High School pool. Again, as I mentioned, it's an 8-lane Murtha pool. These are the renderings that Mark's office generated. Mark, you want to jump in?
No, there's not much to say here, Ted, just other than, I mean, that's the experience of that project is just an 8-lane competition pool. I think most of the people here are familiar with the project, but those are the renderings the firm did and the progress pictures of the construction on site.
Okay. Did I go back? No, I didn't. Okay. This is a slide that we really kind of put together just to kind of talk about the things that we have done together as a group. Obviously, Peters Township High School, St. Clair Country Club. We were the aquatic consultant to help Hayes Group on their expansion. West Allegheny High School was a direct project of the work of the Hayes Group. And then, of course, Rolling Hills Park Master Plan. So these are really the key features that we've worked together on. We really are, I think, a unique firm. We have a strong both national and international background. Susan developed a complete renovation program for the operation of the water sports palace in Dnipropetrovsk in the Ukraine. Took a facility that had just far too many employees and was being operated as in, I think, more of a Soviet style. She brought United States techniques, and she brought all of the way we manage our pools to their facility. She may be able to talk a little more about this, but very important project for our firm in terms of getting international exposure.
We took them from a budget that was so much in the red to them happily being in the black within a few months. So they've made some changes, and it's completely different than the way they used to operate. But it's really been to their benefit. The facility is actually their Olympic facility that they use there in Dnipropetrovsk.
The other thing that's important is that because our practice, our firm is in Lancaster, but we work across Pennsylvania, we have a very strong working knowledge of all of the players in the swimming pool industry, both from a manufacturing standpoint and from the actual contractors in the field. And with Mark's experience, Bob's experience, our experience, we have a very strong local knowledge of the local market and who best to bid these projects. It goes without saying, I think we are fully engaged in this project. We've been involved with Peters Township now for quite some time with the Rolling Hills Park, and it really is a passion of ours to make sure that we are able to bring it to reality for you. The programming and operational and the maintenance aspects, you've asked about those questions in terms of the business plan. Those are the things that Susan will be focusing on so that you have a clear understanding of what those operational costs are going to be, both for a seasonal pool or for a year-round component. So we'll be able to look at those factors that are involved, determine whether or not it makes sense for the township to proceed with the idea of doing a year-round facility or to do the more traditional, more focused 3-season or shoulder season facility. The idea of adding the water playground certainly does allow the township the ability to make that facility available to the public on a longer than 90-day season, because as you know, we run deep into September with hot weather. We go early into the spring with hot weather. And with a water playground without the requirements for lifeguarding and things of that nature, it allows those types of facilities to remain active and functional in the shoulder seasons. And ultimately what will happen with this is we will bring this expertise together to create an individualized solution for this township. This will be your pool. It's not going to be something that's cookie cutter out of another facility or whatever. This is going to be specific to your facility. The people you see at this table tonight are actively going to be working on this project. We don't have a sales arm. We don't have other folks coming here to present our work. We are the individuals that are going to be doing the work and directing the work in our individual offices. We've broken up the project into various number of steps, project understanding and approach. What we really intend to do is to take the results of the initial study and validate those with you. We want to go back and make sure that the assumptions that we made back in 2018 are still valid. If you have things that have changed in terms of what your understanding of what it is the township would like to do, we want to come back and revisit those for you so that we can make sure that the assumptions we made before are still valid, and where they need to change, they will change. I think one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is we are good communicators. I think all of us really enjoy the working together with the staff and making sure that we bring those ideas into the design process. One of the things we'll do with you is we'll determine the types of facilities the complex should host. And then again, it's going to be based upon the information we generated initially with the feasibility study, but also with new data that's going to come to the table. And again, Bob, Mark, and I, Sue, we really want to make sure that we have a full understanding of the components that you think would be the most beneficial to you. Susan will be able to tell you which of these kind of activities can generate the most revenues. And those will be the things we're going to try to do for you so that you have a full understanding of what those components are, what kind of programming can happen for them, what kind of staffing requirements might need to be there in order to properly operate them. But it's pulling all that information together in one location so that when the township makes that decision, they have data in front of them that's real and relevant. So I think from that particular standpoint, we're going to be looking at all the various components that impact the site, ADA compliance, and how that impacts the design of the pools. And then the fully accessible bathhouse, filter rooms, multi-purpose areas, those are all things that were in that initial study that we will come back to and make sure they are still valid and still appropriate for the facility that you hope to build.
I'm going to talk a little bit about step 2. This is the understanding of the site. And as you know, in the past, we've looked at the entire 90 acres originally. This was a southern-facing slope, and that's why the Aquatic Center was situated in this natural bowl area. To get the most length out of something like this, seasonal length, the southern-facing slope is the best location versus what we have on the opposite side of the ridge. That'll be the Winterfest area. That keeps the snow most of the year. And so environmentally, we've already gone through a lot of detailed research and investigation for this project. But as Ted said, we want to revisit that with you to make sure the programming meets what you need now. And so we're not stuck on this plan. We're going to work it again with you to make the best effort available for the site. Right now, it's been laid into the bowl, the lawn bowl, to reduce costs and to terrace the parking into the hillside. The current building and pool was situated on the tennis court area. Again, that was to reduce construction costs. And therefore, you can spend more money from your budget on the facility itself. So it's been planned to be designed with the land. That saves money. It's also been planned and designed, and we want to make sure it's going to function with whatever's not built around it. Because when this goes in, we're not going to have some of these other facilities. But we need to understand as designers, it's going to connect and fit well and be ADA compliant. And so our understanding of the whole master plan to this stage really lends itself to giving you a product that's going to work. It's going to work not only after this is done, but 5 years from now when something else is built, or 2 years from now when something else is built, that it fits and it's already been pre-planned. And we can assure you that because we've already done the engineering, and we're doing the engineering now for phase, what you call 2, is the infrastructure. The roadway, the loop road, all the utilities, the stormwater, and some of this site now relates to the stormwater basin 1 at the bottom of the page. It's in green. So we're planning a feature for a wet pond in this facility. That may or may not remain, but it's important to know we already understand the engineering needed for the stormwater basin to control that whole valley. And what's remaining in that facility has to be picked up and controlled. So little intricacies of that we already are looking at. Traffic calming, parking, access, dual entrances into this facility, connections for bikeways, trails, and sidewalks. We've already given plenty of detailed thought, and both as an engineering firm with landscape architects, but also with the architects themselves, and had a lot of interconnected conversation to help figure things out. So we're excited to continue this, and I'm going to turn it over back to Ted, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Once that process is completed, then we'll, again, work with you to determine what particular features will be involved with the project, and we'll make sure that all the amenities that you're looking to achieve will be documented and pulled into the project. Again, with step 3, one of the big things that we've hit this year that really none of us really anticipated was COVID-19. When talking to the CDC and looking at some of the things that are going on, the CDC really has deemed that swimming pools really are some of the safest places we can be. Water quality and the type of sanitation and secondary sanitation really can go a long way to controlling virus. The COVID-19 is not capable of being sustained in swimming pool water, but it also has that ability to be contained in buildings. So those are all things that we look at. But in terms of chlorine-based sanitation, low pressure or medium pressure UV and hydroxyl radical are all treatments that we use in our pools to make sure that water quality is spectacular and clean. That's the most important thing we can do for our kids and users of these facilities, to make sure that they are filtered properly, sanitized properly, and put online. When we talk about the air quality in the building, if we are looking at a year-round structure, we're going to be looking at chloramine capture. We're going to be looking at the ability to treat the air in the ductworks with cold plasma ionization to be able to kill and reduce the effectiveness of bacteria, molds, and virus in the ductwork system and in the air column in the building. Cold plasma ionization has been around for a long time, but there's never been a reason for people to spend the additional dollars that it takes to put it into buildings. Now we have that reason. And from this point forward, all of our projects are going to be utilizing cold plasma ionization in terms of the air column treatment. Source capture of chloramine really only impacts an indoor pool. It's not something we have to worry about in an outdoor environment, but if we do go the route of an indoor pool, we'll make sure that the air handling systems are designed in such a way that those chloramines are removed and taken out of the space, so that anybody using those pools will not be subject to high levels of chlorine.
So I'll talk a little bit about the fourth step after the site's development has been worked over, and then the aquatic facility has been kind of laid out. One of the last design features is actually doing step 4 would be taking a look at the 2 different design options for the building. Oops, disappeared. You can look at your book.
It's coming. It's coming.
Okay, that's all right. Well, I'll continue. But anyhow, so there's so there's 2 different design building options that we'd be looking at. One would be for a year-round facility where there would be an indoor pool facility, but we'd also look at could this facility just be for summer use only, with outdoor pools, but that would be supported by a bathhouse and other supporting facilities. Some of the overall design considerations that we would, plan while we're designing. Safety and security are probably very high on our priority list to take into consideration during any design of any building. But, today it seems like buildings need to be very flexible, because it seems like there's a lot of change in the use of the building. Not so much, obviously this would remain an aquatic facility, but you may want a room to be a banquet facility or something, but then it might turn over to be something in the future. So we always take into consideration the flexibility of the space. We'll also look at material selection, choosing, economical materials that are durable and last for a long time. This type of structure is not just a 20-year structure. I think if the township's putting together an investment of your own monies, that, you'd want to look at a building that is sustainable and very durable, lasts a long time. We too, have COVID-19 design considerations, just like Ted was talking about for the pools, but for the buildings, it's a little bit different. And, we're just entering into this. So, a lot of people have been asking us questions, what do you do to integrate some new design techniques to deal with some sort of pandemic that comes along. So we're just starting this, but, I think a lot of firms have the same ideas. We got to address social distancing. We got to think about how things don't get touched. So we're going to be looking at, the shower rooms and the locker rooms, how they can be used and operated so that, it's kept to provide social distancing. We'll take space considerations into consideration throughout the building, just as we're working out the design. But the material selections too, something that's important about material selections is maybe you start thinking about materials that are easily cleaned, easily sanitized, maybe an antimicrobial materials so that you're not getting some absorbent material. And no-touch features, there's things like automatic flush valves on toilets, there's automatic sinks, there's hand dryers, there's automatic door openers, but that does cost money. So again, we would lay those options out for you, but I think it does help with preventative measures for COVID-19. And then, of course, lastly, plenty of natural light and good mechanical ventilation in the system is always really important.
In your RFP, you talk about energy sustainable design, and again, the things with swimming pools you have to understand is they're energy hogs. They run 24/7, 365. So the pumps and the motors are always on. It's always a source of power. But VFDs are utilized on all of our pumps and all of our motors to allow you to purchase power at the right time and to vary the speed of the motors to get the best efficiency. We've gone away from the use of the old swimming pool heaters. We now are using high-efficiency condensing boilers in all of our heating plants. It's a much simpler way of working, much more energy efficient, and any mechanic can work on it. It does not have to be a specific pool-related individual. And again, looking at the carbon footprint of the systems we use. The pre-engineered steel pool has a lower carbon footprint than a concrete pool. So those are things we'll take into account as we move forward with this. Mark?
Yeah, okay, so sustainable building and site considerations that we're going to probably consider as we're going through this process. And these aren't everything, it's just some examples. Of course, making the building an energy efficient building envelope. We could even go beyond code as far as, but you're adding expense to the initial cost, but you might have it in a return on investment as far as how much savings you would have. We would consider natural light and ventilation, facility solar orientation. Actually, we were talking about solar orientation before on the site, but it's just as important to how the building's oriented too, so that there's not heat gain. You don't want a lot of glass on a south-facing wall. You really want the natural light on a north-facing wall. We'll look at use of recycled materials. On the site, we would consider things like, there's a heat island effect, which is, where you have a large asphalt area, you're going to have a lot of heat gain. So sometimes you want to counter that with islands and trees to help reduce that heat island effect. We'll look at stormwater management and infiltration, reuse of stormwater, possibly for irrigation. Again, these things are just to consider. We always consider native plantings so that there's, the landscaping is real water efficient. LED fixtures is very popular. I don't really need to go there because I think that's almost a standard now in architectural design. That reduces the consumption of electricity. Bicycle storage, we would look at that to encourage more people to maybe ride their bikes to this facility versus driving cars to help the environment. And then also we would be looking at solar lighting and landscaping as well. Oh, that's me too. I got to flip the page. All right. So step 5. Once we have now we've got the site, we've got the aquatic facility, we've got the building, we've talked about the design, we get through all that. Now we got to put together a construction estimate. And actually, our team prefers to call it a project budget. And we like to present to our clients an all-inclusive project budget. I think it's best that you see all the money that needs to be in. It's all in. Because when you hear people talk construction estimates, really what they're talking about are the hard costs. So in our project budgets, we divide it into 2 categories. We have hard costs and soft costs. The hard costs are the construction costs with the site development, and there may be design contingencies. That's so the clients have the ability to make adjustments during the design and absorb some of that design contingency. Once we get into construction, there's a construction contingency that will help pay for any change orders. So we appropriately recommend a percentage amount to hold for contingencies. That's hard costs. That's all the what you're getting for your money. Now, there are soft costs, right? So you have to realize that there's architectural engineering fees, there's on-site testing, there's furniture, like the pool furniture, there's equipment in the building, and there's miscellaneous permit fees. And we try to identify, and we would work with the administrative staff as well if there's any other cost involved, but we really like to bring to the table everything in the project budget so you know all the costs that would need to be spent.
I have step 6, and that's the business plan and the understanding of all of that goes into it. This comes about after the pools, building, whatever is designed, so that the budget can then be prepared. The first step in any budget that I do is talking with the staff about goals and objectives, so that I fully understand, and they fully understand, how we go about getting to the budget and what kind of things are going to take place. We'll do a comparison in the budget with the summer only and the year-round operational revenues so that you have a good understanding of where those costs will be. Organizational structure will be for the, needless to say, for the staffing. It'll include, depending on the facilities, seasonal, part-time, and possibly full-time if it's year-round. The spreadsheets are your normal spreadsheets. I mean, I'm not going to go into all the detail on that. It will be the expenses, revenues. But what makes mine a little different is that I really go into detail on what supports that data. I don't just use what similar pools of similar size are doing. I nail it down to your area, what's going on here. The construction costs that are included at the end come from the architects. There'll also be a discussion about the financial options that may be possibilities for the township to use. I'll give suggestions for special events, not so much how to operate them, but what are some of the things that other communities are doing that have been very successful and intriguing for that community. We'll also do the SWOT analysis so that you understand during the operation or with the operation what are the possibly the opportunities you would have, the weaknesses, the threats, and help deal with those ahead of time with some suggestions so that nobody's caught off guard. Again, we'll use the studies that have been done and anything else that we can use for information so that we can get our numbers correct for you.
All right, and lastly, I just wanted to mention about, so how does all this come together? You know, how do we communicate with council and the community? Well, the process is an iterative process. You know, we're going to be starting off probably meeting with, you know, doing some design, but meeting with the administrators, kicking off the program, talking about the program and what we should do. But then we'll do a design. We would meet with them. We would collect feedback, make the revisions, and we'd probably go through that process several times once the administration started to feel comfortable with the design to the point where we could present to council. Then we'd come to council, present, get feedback, make revisions, et cetera. And you kind of go through that process until, you know, I call it the rinse and repeat process. We're going to keep going through that until the council is comfortable with the final design decisions and there's some approval to move forward. But that's really in a nutshell how it all gets wrapped together in a process.
The project deliverable.
I was just going to say, so in the interest of time, I think we're running a little late, so let's go through the project deliverables a little bit faster. I think what we're going to show you is really what the product you're going to actually see. So we've talked about the whole process, the project understanding. I think we can go through these pretty quick, Ted.
Sure.
We'll go through them and, or no, I mean, you can say what they are.
Well, I mean, it's obviously it's Rolling Hills Park, but this was one of the early initial drawings that we developed in the early stages of the project. And you can see how it's developed from a freehand drawing into a CAD document, and it's really the process that we use. Everything goes from the hand to the computer, and then ultimately it's rendered for presentation to the community. We do everything in Revit these days. We are now working in Revit is a three-dimensional AutoCAD software. It basically allows us to build models of everything that we're building within the computer, and we can take us hand sketch, we can then generate a plan, we can generate building sections, and help with the process of really creating accurate and extremely thorough documentation for the project.
And the advantage of that is you can be there virtually with a walkthrough, a fly-through, you get to see the spatial arrangements.
Speaking of which.
And here it is.
Speaking of which, so this was a fly-through that we did for St. Clair Country Club. You know, they wanted to do an addition onto their pool house, which is actually a grill, an indoor grill and an outdoor grill that actually the golfers and the members at the pool could use together at the same time. And so this is something that we have included in our process to deliver to you. We think that it really helps not only council, but then you could also share it with the public. It actually gets I'll tell you what it does is when they took this to the board at St. Clair Country Club, everyone then got really, really excited about the project because now they really have a virtual idea of what this space was going to feel like, other than just something two-dimensionally on drawings. And even just nice renderings sometimes are good, but when you actually fly through the spaces, you actually feel like you're there. And so we just wanted to show you just a quick clip. It's not too much longer than this, but you can see how the animation, you can get fans going, people moving. You can pick how you walk through a facility and what you're looking at. And but that is something that we present at the final of the presentation. Also, part of the presentation would be, again, the construction estimates or the project budget. These are just going to be spreadsheets, but I think what we wanted to pull up and show you here is we also take into consideration escalation. So, you know, if you didn't decide to do it in the summer of 2022 or be done by the summer of 2022, you know, if it was a 23, 24, we actually project out columns that would help you understand how the expenses would grow over that time. So it helps make decisions whether you move forward sooner than later or wait a little bit. And then we'll also have a project schedule. We're going to keep you informed of the project schedule all the way from beginning to end. Usually we start these with the end in mind. We start with council, like what is your goal? If your goal was to open a poll and say May of, you know, Memorial Day of 2022. So what we did, this was in our proposal, we just put together a schedule working backwards with a one-year construction schedule, allowing enough time to put the construction documents together, and then before that, having enough time to go through the design process and present it to council. The council meetings are actually integrated into the schedule so that we're presenting and then giving you time also to decide. It's not, we don't come to a meeting and expect you to decide that night. It might be a whole month, and some of that's integrated, into the schedule. So, but however this schedule morphs, I mean, we would always keep that presented and updated and realistic.
This is examples of the detail that I can get into to support the budget. This is part of a workbook in Excel, and what would happen with this is this actually becomes live. So if you change something in one, it'll go all the way to the main budget and change that for you. But you will understand exactly where each one of those numbers have come from, and that it's not an estimate from or a guess from somebody else's budget that they may have from another pool. This is another type of an example of that. This is what we do to determine the part-time staff, how many hours are needed, what the pay might be.
So in closing, we really are extremely excited about this project. It goes without saying. I think we all have put a tremendous amount of time and effort into this in the initial study, but we really feel very strongly that this is a project that we want to make a reality for you. I think the idea of establishing, again, the community needs, creating a custom solution for your community, and we really feel very strongly that we have the right components and the right team members here to do a phenomenal job for you. And with that, we really want to thank you for your time this evening. I hope we didn't run over too long, but again, thank you for having us here tonight.
You go to the next slide too, Ted. Yeah, you did cover all of those, but I did want to also make one closing statement. Thank you all for your time. I know you just sat through 2 hours interviews here, and you know it's a really tough time to actually put up with all this. And I know that you do this because, and this is you're volunteering your time, and I know you do this because you care about your community. And I just want to say that. My parents moved here in 1972. We haven't moved. My parents are still there. I'm back here. I've been living here with my family, raising my family here. It's because I care about this community too. You know, I've seen so many great things being done in Peters Township. This project, I know they're all excited about this project, but it means it's really personal to me. I want to make sure that this project is an asset to the community. It's a success. It can sustain itself. It's a good plan. It's good for everyone. That really means a lot to me, and I would really put a lot of effort into this project. You'll see that, or you could talk to anyone at the school district, how much time I've been putting into the high school project, and it probably far exceeded what they expected. And again, it goes back to that level of care. You all care about the community. That's why you're serving it. And I look at this as a service to the community as well. So thank you.
I have just one question here. Looking at your fee estimate, if I'm reading this correctly, if I add these things together, it comes up to about 600,000. Is that the?
That would be the overall complete project, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And that's based upon estimates. But our feeling is that once we establish the project scope, that number is.
Oh, I understand. I'm just
basically,
so that's the ballpark.
Sure.
Okay. Any council members have any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good presentation.
Thank you.
Very complete.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in.